7 degrees at 7:33. Good morning, everyone. The House of Commons in Ottawa is hosting an Eastern European guest today who has spent a lot of time in the global headlines over the past couple of months. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko will address a joint session of Parliament today. He was invited by Prime Minister Stephen Harper as a show of Canadian support as Ukraine defends itself against pro-Russian rebels who are snatching territory within Ukraine's eastern regions. Harper will have a private meeting with Poroshenko as well today. The Ukraine president will then head to Washington tomorrow for a meeting with U.S. President Barack Obama. The province of Alberta is selling its controversial fleet of government airplanes, but one aviation expert calls that a mistake, a knee-jerk reaction to get rid of a political problem. Selling off the 4 aircraft, the very first decision of now Premier Jim Prentice and his new cabinet. Of course, the use and misuse of these planes was the subject of a scathing report last month by Alberta's Auditor General. Merwin saw her referring to the Alison Redford regime as having an aura of power that led government staff to bending and breaking the rules to accommodate then Premier Alison Redford.
Clearly, this has been a major issue in our province for some time. It was a major issue over the course of the summer. It is something that I heard loud and clear about from Albertans through the entirety of the summer.
Wild Rose leader Danielle Smith says her party is pleased the government is doing the right thing by selling the 4-plane fleet, but she says her party was first to call for the province to get rid of the aircraft, saying it should have been done about 6 months ago. Provincial Liberal leader Raj Sherman says the PCs only decide to do the right thing when they find themselves in danger of losing power. But not everybody thinks the move is such a good idea. As we mentioned, one aviation expert says selling the fleet is a bad move. It'll cost the government, he says, in other ways.
They're going to have to charter smaller aircraft and use some of the local small charter operators, and the cost of operating those aircraft and waiting time and so forth is going to be more expensive.
Baleshko, by the way, is also concerned about the 27 workers who will mostly be laid off, the aircraft employees. He says some of the best pilots and mechanics work on those government aircraft. NASA is a giant step closer now to launching Americans into outer space again from American soil. The space agency announcing it has picked Boeing and SpaceX to transport astronauts to the International Space Station within the next few years. The deal will end NASA's expensive reliance on Russia. U.S. astronauts have been riding Russian rockets, Soyuz rockets, ever since NASA's shuttles retired back in 2011. The latest price tag is $71 million per seat. NASA has set a goal of 2017 for the first launch under the Commercial Crew program. Both companies will use crew capsules. Time to focus on business now. Decisions by central banks will likely be moving the markets this morning. Business editor Mike Uppel joining us live from Toronto. Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, good morning, Ted. This is going to be a fascinating day because this afternoon the U.S. Central Bank may, for the first time in several years actually, change its guidance when it comes to interest rate policy. Because the U.S. economy has been doing better recently, they could signal that around the midpoint of next year they're going to start raising interest rates for the first time since the recession in 2008-09. That might be a shock to the system of the market, which has gotten so used to the idea of record low interest rates, easy money coming in, stocks going up, bond yields remaining very low. Interesting to note as well, overnight, China's central bank, they added economic stimulus because their economy, it's growing, but not as fast as it was. So they want to get that going again. And what has the European Central Bank been doing recently? Cutting interest rates to record lows. So we have on one hand, the U.S. maybe raising rates at some point, others still very hesitant. The global economy is very uneven right now. Canada's economy somewhere stuck in the middle. The CIBC today raising its outlook, though, for the Canadian economy next year a little bit because what have we seen recently? Better exports. In fact, those are at record levels because the Canadian dollar has dropped over the course of this year, around the 91-cent U.S. level as of this morning. For the first time since it was listed as a publicly traded company way back in 1958, Sony says it won't be paying a dividend to shareholders this year. They're forecasting a loss of $2.1 billion. They've lost all sorts of money on their smartphone division. Sony smartphones in around 9th place globally for worldwide shipments. It's struggled We talk a lot about the successes of Apple and Samsung. Sony, which used to be #1, fell out of favor and has been struggling basically ever since. FedEx, strong first quarter results. Global shipping of packages way up. And the expectation is this Christmas, more of the same. UPS in the United States saying they're going to hire 95,000 temporary workers simply because people are shopping online, shipping their presents or getting presents shipped to them, their purchases, via ground delivery because of the growth of online shopping activity. And a for sale sign up for some Alberta oil assets. Apache Corporation of Houston putting up some properties for the oil and gas sector for sale. They want to raise about $840 million. Bank of Nova Scotia helping out with that. Price for oil this morning, it's been relatively steady. Saw a bit of a spike in yesterday's trade. OPEC might cut back supply next year. Ted, back to you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mike. Mike Apple chatting with us from 680 News in Toronto. 680 News is the sister radio station of 660 News right here in Calgary.